Peace. This is Anpu Ra once again talking about astral traveling. This is for the people out there that want to know what is astral traveling like. Well, for me, this is about my experience, and I'm reading off my personal journal and explaining my journey with this astral travel. The last video I did, I spoke about how when I first time I remember seeing a shadow being. It was 1987. I also spoke about 2012 because that year, this is when it started happening a lot to me, and I knew I had to take this information down, so I did. So I went and bought me a journal book, and I started jotting this stuff down and keeping track of the days when it happened, the time, and wrote down the experience that I had. So in this segment, I'm going to talk about what happened on April 21st, 2013. It was on a Sunday. It was around 2:33 a.m. in the morning, and the vibration started to happen. When the vibration came, when it comes, it feels like and sounds like a washing machine is in my head. It's a very uncomfortable feeling because it's so powerful, I started to pull away from my body, and it's like you in slow motion. When I finally got out, I looked around, and the shadow beings were just standing there, like if they were waiting for me. And like I said, for some reason, it was always 3. So I went into attack mode, and I went after them again. The shadows, they so fast. It's like that movie, Harry Potter. I'm not really a big Harry Potter fan, but my stepson is. And the scene when you see those shadows of death, whatever characters that's coming after Harry Potter, that's exactly what they look like. I'm pretty sure that the lady that wrote that book, she probably astral traveled. She probably seen some shit and got a lot of ideas, to put into into her books, into Hollywood movies, but that's how they are. They very fast, and they left my apartment at that time, and I ended up going back to my body. I woke up and I thought about what just happened. Like, whoa, here we go again. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear because it's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, what the fuck are these shadows? Like, what they want from me? So I end up going back to sleep, and the vibration came again in that same night. And I came out my body again. I went to the window in my living room, and everything just looked the same. I looked out the window, saying to myself, you can do it. So I decided to leave my apartment in the spiritual realm. But when I turned around to the door, it was a baby in a carriage, crying. And when I went to the baby looked like me. I don't know what that meant, but for some reason I knew it was a distraction. Remember, I am so conscious when I'm in this state. It doesn't feel like a dream. Very conscious. So I went out the door, and I remember my heart was pounding because of the fear that I had. I went to the roof of my building because my apartment building was in Queens, New York at that time. And it was only a 3-floor apartment building. And I always had access to the roof. So, I've been up there a couple of times, looked up there. I went up there to meditate. Did some sun gazing. I'll get back to that a little later. So in this state, in this spiritual realm, everything looks the same. So I end up going to my roof uh, in my building. And I looked around, everything looked the same, nothing is different. So I said to myself, let's try to fly. Thought about it. Then I said, what if I'm sleepwalking? Right? And what if I jump off the roof and die? That's how conscious I was. Like, that's the thoughts that was running through my head. I was like, damn, what if I'm sleepwalking and if I just jump off this roof trying to fly? Because it feels so real that this realm, I must call it, I mean, if this plane that we in right now is the third dimension, I'm just gonna call this the fourth dimension, right? Because everything looks the same, but it's things that we can't see in this dimension that we are now, but we can see in the fourth dimension. You see the hidden things. You know what I'm saying? So because of that, I was so conscious. I decided. I said, you know what? Let me go downstairs and go outside of the building and try to fly from the ground. All right. I said, let me be smart about this. Let me be smart about this. So I tried jumping up, but didn't work. So I used my mind and I started to float. It was a wonderful feeling to lift off the ground like Superman. I started to fly up, and when I went over my building, I looked at the window of my building, and standing in my window, of my living room window, was that Caucasian woman that I had, you know, experience with that experience I had within that house with the crystal ball, and it was the same exact woman, an old Caucasian looking woman. Like, I don't even know who she is. I've never seen her in a day in my life, but there she was in my window as I was flying up. And I looked and I'm like, in my mind, I'm saying to myself, like, oh, that's that same lady. Like, and she was smiling at me. And so as I was flying higher, within a blink of an eye, I was in this higher dimension. See, now I consider this dimension like the fifth dimension. Because it was so different. It was a different place I'd never seen before. See, this place, the spiritual room that I was in at first, it was like everything looked the same. The apartment buildings around, the trees, you know, there's cars on the block. But when I flew up higher, I just, boom, I was somewhere totally different. And this place was the most beautiful place I've ever seen in my life. Like, I'm even getting chills now just thinking about it. It's something I will never forget. So words really can't describe it. There was soft music playing. The grass and the trees were so bright and the sun was so amazing. I could look at the sun and not quench my eyes. They were these crystal pyramids, these giant crystal pyramids, and they were shooting rainbows in the sky. Is this heaven? Because it felt so right and the air was full of love. I can't believe it. The higher realms do exist, people. While I was flying, I went over the ocean. I started to panic because I was thinking, what if I fall in the water? And because of me thinking this, my fear started to bring me down into the water. I went under the water and I was shocked that I was still breathing under the water. I looked down while I was in the ocean and I saw this underwater city. It was like made out of crystals and it was bright. I didn't want to go down there. Like, I'm gonna tell you no lie. It was a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear. That's one thing. I can't lie about. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I was just like, wow. I was amazed. I mean, I did feel the atmosphere was beautiful and full of love, but just the things of not knowing is always get that fear, you know. You don't know something, or you don't know something about something, you're a little cautious about it. All right. So I saw this I saw this giant whale like it was this big giant whale like, but it looked very friendly. I stayed calm, and I remember I kind of like ran up his back under the water and flew out. And at that point, like the fear was just gone. I was just like I felt so powerful. It's an amazing feeling. I just can't explain it. So I flew up to the sky and I looked around to this place and it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful that I just started to cry. That's how beautiful it was. And because I was so conscious in this experience, I said to myself, I'm here for a reason. And maybe I'm here to meet someone. And sure enough, a blue being came out of the water and he greeted me. And this blue being, I'm going to try to describe it. He was like royal blue. And he was very muscular, big muscles. Like, but I wasn't scared of him. You know, he came out the water and he just waved at me, and I was like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And I'm like floating in the air, like on some, on some movie shit. Shit is crazy. And he had like these spikes on his shoulder. All right. So the blue beam was pointing to someone, like, "Yo, look." You know what I'm saying? He's pointing to someone, and when I looked, it was the same African man that I had, the same African man that I had the experience the last time in that house, that he didn't let me in the room to speak to that Caucasian lady that I had so many questions for, when he said, you know, you're gonna speak to her, but just not now. You know, the same African man. And I've never seen him in the day in my life. I don't know who he is. I don't know any. I just know that in this experience, you know, I've seen him. And this is not the second time I've seen this guy. I've seen the first time I've ever saw him, I was I had a lucid dream. I didn't speak about this in the last video, but one day I was dreaming and I was in my neighborhood in Queens and a lion was chasing me. Fucking lion in the hood, right? A lion was chasing me, and I remember I was jumping on cars. And I remember I was like, when I was jumping on cars, I was floating. And then I realized that, like, oh shit, I'm floating. And then I thought about it again. I was like, what the hell is a lion doing in the hood? And because I thought about that, I became conscious and I became lucid in my dream. This is what I was talking about in the last video about lucid dreaming. That's an example of my experience. And I remember I was like, this is a dream. This is not real. And when I turned around, lion was gone. I turned back the other way, the same African man standing there posted up on a car with his hands crossed like this. And he looked at me and he was like, are you ready? And I was like, yeah. And then I started to follow him. He started walking. I started to follow him. And boom, my alarm clock woke me up. That was crazy. So now in this experience, in this higher dimension, this same African man, you know, this blue beam was pointing towards him. And he was waving at me like to come here, like come to me. So I flew to him, and the first thing he said to me was, "Are you having fun?" And I felt like a little kid that had 1,001 questions, and I was like, "What is this place? Like, what's going on?" Like, and the African man kept saying, "Calm down." He kept telling me to calm down, and we walked in this beautiful hall, and there was a lot of people there. I mean, it was like It looked like a cathedral. It was a big building, like it was a beautiful building. I was like the architect, and then like I'm into art, so the architect in this was just amazing. So we walked in. There was a lot of people there. We walked in there, and I remember I turned to the African man. I asked him about my mother because she died on December in 2007. I'm thinking that's how conscious it was. I'm thinking this is heaven. So I'm like, I want to see my mom's. Like, so I asked him. I was like, yo, is my mom's here? And he said, I don't know. And then I asked him about my father because he also died. My father died in 2009. And I never knew my father. So thinking maybe I could meet him for the first time in this realm. The African man said, I don't know. Then the African man said to me, why are you looking for your mother and father and you're not asking about the one who created you? Man, I didn't know what to say. That hit me hard. When he said that, it was powerful, and I thought about it, and I didn't know what to say. But he was right. And within a blink of an eye, bam, I was back in my body. And I remember I got up and I screamed. I did it. And my girl woke up like, you okay? Like, what's going on? I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I'm sorry. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. You know what I mean? And it was around, because I checked my clock. It was around 5 a.m. in the morning. So I told her to go back to sleep. And I couldn't tell her what happened. I couldn't share that with her at that time. And I told her to go back to sleep, and I went in the bathroom. And I went to the bathroom and I cried and laughed at the same time. It was just amazing. It was just amazing. Amazing feeling. It was amazing that I conquered my fear at that time. I conquered my fear. And it was just amazing. And I remember kept saying to myself, I did it. I did it. And I'm always doing my research on spirituality. And it's true. It's true, people. The higher realms do exist. It do. And I think everybody out there can access this power, can access these hidden realms. I just think that it takes practice. I just think that you just have to change your state of mind. You know, I mean, get off that religious thing, man. Sometimes, I mean, that's how I feel like, because these religions, a lot of religions, they don't be talking about this type of things. And it's real. It's very real. And I'm not the only one speaking about it. Like, there's other people out there that's talking about it. So I know I'm not alone. And there's no coincidence. And I'm pretty sure there's other people out there that had the same experience I had. They seen the same shadow beings. I mean, what is the coincidence on that? Same people leaving their bodies. They turn around, they see their bodies still laying in the bed. You know what I'm saying? Change your state of mind, your train of thought. And you too can access these realms and get information and know the things that you want to know, or the questions you know that you have that you want to know. So yes, it's real. The higher realms do exist, and there's more to life than this physical body. Trust me. For some reason, I wrote here. For some reason, I'm not afraid to open up about this. It's like I want to tell the whole world. And I wrote this in April 2013, and here I am, finally telling the whole world. But who would believe me? Until we meet again, like I said, this is Anpu Ra, talking about the spiritual realm, sharing my personal journal with the world. Peace.